I was given a pager and I was given a BlackBerry and the flip phone with like 85 batteries, so that there was no excuse for me to ever not be reachable, right? And it was like insane. And I was fired up because I was like, oh my God, like I'm
best thing in the world.
I'm working in Hollywood. Like I'm this little schtunk from, Northwest Indiana, and I'm working in Hollywood. Like I'm just doing it.
You're listening to The Other 50%, a herstory of Hollywood. I'm Julie Harris Walker. This is a podcast where I talk to successful women in entertainment and hear their stories. For this episode, I got to speak with Laurie Lieser. Laurie is a creative producer on such shows as Aquarius, The Magicians, and Trumbo. She came up as a producer's assistant and made herself invaluable to the process to the point where she is now a producer. Her job sounds really fun, I'm not going to lie. You can find us at theother50%.com for added features, photos, show notes, and merchandise. Please go to the website and sign up if you haven't already. You can listen on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Podbay, and now on Spotify, iHeartRadio, and YouTube. All right, here's my conversation with Laurie. Have a listen. Okay, let's talk about you.
Yes.
You're a producer on The Magicians.
Yes.
And drama TV shows is what you've been doing.
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, to take it back, like I don't want to say it was before I was a teenager that like I always knew I wanted to work in the entertainment industry. Like that was just kind of, I knew it. And my grandfather and my grandmother were both in the entertainment industry.
What'd they do?
My grandfather was a booker in Buffalo, New York. And he booked, like Blazing Saddles was one of his, and Gator, and I was a little girl, so I don't remember all of them.
Like he booked acts?
He booked movies in theaters.
Oh.
So I should say he's a distributor. My grandmother was a booker. He was a distributor. So he distributed films in the different theaters. Mm-hmm. I mean, back in those days, that was probably the 60s and, 60s, 70s. So he would get all these movies. Avco Embassy was the company, and he would distribute these movies into different theaters. So we would get them, and I remember like growing up, I was born in Buffalo, New York. I have two older brothers. We were all born in Buffalo, and then we moved when I was 5 to Boston, and then we moved to Atlanta, and then we settled outside of Chicago when I was 10 in Northwest Indiana and Munster, Indiana. So we got access to all these different movies. So we would have, the little projector, and we'd be in our living room with the screen, and we'd get to watch the reels of these movies. Like I remember watching Gator, which was inappropriate for sure for me, and Blazing Saddles, which is completely inappropriate. Which all the jokes probably went over like.
But you had the print in your living room.
Yes, I had a print in my living room.
That's amazing,
and it was great. I'm sure I fell asleep through all of those movies because I was like,
what did you know?
Between 5 and 7, really.
Doesn't everyone?
Yeah, but that was like a great time. So my grandfather did that. My grandmother, who. I want to say it's my blood. My grandfather was my blood. My grandmother was a step-grandmother, but the only grandmother I knew on that side. So she was my grandmother. But just to say it was in my blood, I can't be fair with her. But she was a booker at Warner Brothers and worked with Jack Warner and would tell stories about having lunch at the commissary with Jack. And then at the table would be Pat O'Brien and Jimmy Cagney. And in would walk the bitch, Joan Crawford. And, she would walk in and they'd all stop and look at her and she would just... her nose up in the air.
She'd snub them as she
would
walked
snub,
by.
But she was just, the bitch. And it was just like, she'd tell me these stories, and I was just like, more and more and more. And then to cut to working in 1999, 2000 on the Warner Brothers lot where she worked, and she, just to kind of put myself there and be like, she was probably walking in this building and walking down by the stage.
Is she still alive?
No, she passed away many years ago. She died at like 96, God bless her. She was,
Wow.
She was a spitfire. Her nickname was Queenie, to give you a sense of who this lady was. I mean, she was the Queen Bee, and she went by Queenie.
You knew you wanted to work in entertainment, but did you know what? How?
I know. I just knew that I loved it. I remember like late nights watching musicals on like the PBS station with my mom, and I remember there was one movie that she was like, made me watch that I ended up loving was a movie called Margie with Gene Crane. And it was just, amazing and fun. And then, we would watch, God, I'm just trying to remember the musicals, like 42nd Street and Funny Girl is one of the all-time favorites, right? I watch that today still, like so many times if it's on. I just remember like, watching those with her. And my dad, I always remember him watching like war movies. And I was like, I can't watch that. Like I can't watch the death and destruction and like that stuff. I was like, it's too dark. But I always would watch like musicals and stuff with her. And so then I graduated from high school at 17, like at the after the first semester. And we were moving to New York City because my dad had started a company there and we were going to move. And I was heartbroken because I was like, oh my God, I'm going off to college, wherever that may be. And I'm not going to have any friends to come back to because we're going to be in Manhattan.
Yeah, they're moving your home.
They're moving me, and so I was like, I'm going to go into the entertainment industry. I'm moving to LA. And my parents were like, the hell you are. You are not. You're going to go to college and you're going to get education. If you want to go to Los Angeles after that, then we'll have a discussion. But so
where'd you go?
So we went to New York, but I was only there for a few months, and I was just like, living a life of a teenager in New York and having a good time. And then we ended up not moving there. We had an apartment there, but we ended up not moving there. My dad was like, we ended up retiring, which is like, big plot twist. He retired, and then I was going off to Indiana University for college, and him and my brother decided to open up a restaurant.
Where?
In Bloomington, Indiana, where I went to college. So my freshman year of college.
Oh, was he having a midlife crisis?
Yeah, I mean, he basically had been in the clothing business for many years, and he'd always wanted to open up a restaurant. He grew up in Philadelphia, and we were born in Buffalo. And my brother was going to Indiana at the time. He's 3 years older than I am. So, he's like, Dad, there's a great opportunity, and we could, there's no chicken wing places in this town that are really any good. So they started doing their research. They went to John and Mary's in Buffalo, New York, where they got the recipes for the sauces, learned how to do all of the recipes and stuff, and then they opened up the restaurant my freshman year in Indiana. So I'm going away to school, and my parents are coming with.
So that worked out.
I mean, it kind of did. I mean, it was fun because
Did you live at home then?
No, I mean, I was in a dorm for the first year. Then I joined a sorority. Mm-hmm. So I was in a sorority the second year, and then junior year of second semester, I went and studied abroad, which was like the best time of my life. Paris. So yeah, I know. It is still
fantastic.
My favorite place on the planet. And I took classes and courses about French film and French cinema and learned all that stuff. I mean, I just immersed myself in anything French just because Nutella banana crepes. I mean, and
what's not to like?
Baguettes and jambon, like everything that you want to immerse yourself in the French culture. And I loved it. It was an amazing experience. And so after I got back that summer, we had a friend of the family who had a radio station in South Florida, near Tampa. I think that's South, right? Is that geographically horrible? So forgive me, Florida, but near Tampa. Mm-hmm. So I had to do an internship. I got to do an internship with him, and it was fantastic. But summer in Florida, I don't know if you've ever had that experience.
Yeah.
I mean, my hair is naturally curly, but I was like a poodle, and I remember he took me one day.
The humidity.
Oh my God, it was horrible. That's why I live in Los Angeles for good hair days. But he took me to the transmitter one day, and it was literally in a frickin' cow patch with cows and cow stuff.
Pies.
Yes, cow pies. Thank you. And learn about that stuff and see where everything was going. And it was great. It was a great education. I mean, I was on the air. I was doing everything, writing copy for the commercials. It was in Zephyr Hills, Florida. So it was outside of Tampa, and it was, a small community. They did a trading post where all the different listeners would have I've got, a tractor that I want to trade, get rid of. So we would do that. Fun. It was kind of like Craigslist before it was Craigslist.
Yeah,
right?
totally.
It was on the air. And so I worked there for the summer and had a great time and learned a lot. And then, actually, I take that back. That was between my sophomore and junior year, before I went to Paris. My junior year, I went and did an internship at WAQ Radio in Chicago. And it was an all-news radio station. It was owned by Group W Westinghouse. And I worked in the sales department as an intern, just helping out and learning just about radio sales and really wanting to learn all of it. So I got to learn about all of it. And I would do all the pitches and stuff. They had to do all their sales reports or go out to pitch, say they were going to a dealership and they wanted to get all this information about how our radio station could help them sell cars. Yeah. I would put together all the pitches and stuff for them and get them all the numbers and make it look pretty and use, in those days it was Quirk Express and PageMaker, if you remember those. I mean, they're taking us way back, right? So that's what I learned to use.
Could you print in color sometimes?
Yes. It was exciting. We had this one day where they came in oh my God, we got this whole new system and we've got this, we can put together these reports and there's this thing, it's like a glue, it's like a glue sealer, so you get all the report.
Oh, you bind it?
You bound it, and it was oh my God, this is awesome, and I was in charge of all that. It was just cool.
Kids these days have no idea.
They have no idea
what we went through.
Yeah, I mean, it was, so I did that, and then because I was in the sales department, 15 feet away around a corner was the newsroom. Mm-hmm. And that was where the action was, and I've always liked to be in the action. That's just who I am, and not that I need to be in the action or the the spotlight of the action, but I just like to be in the action.
You want to be in the bustle.
Yeah, I like it. And so I was, just any chance I could be in the newsroom, I was in the newsroom, for whatever reason. And finally, there was a position like a news production assistant that they needed help. And I got to work there on weekends. And so I'd work, during the week. I'd work, as in the sales intern. And then the internship ended that summer. I had a great time. Before I left, they offered me a job. So going into senior year of college, I had a job in the third largest market in the country at a radio station. Like I was like, pinch me, like, this is amazing. And as luck would have it, and when I graduated from college, they had a hiring freeze at Westinghouse.
Of course.
So my job was like, we're so sorry, we can't bring you in right now, and we'll just keep you posted. And so then I got like just a silly job, at some random place, and did that for a little while until the hiring freeze was lifted, and then they hired me. So then I became a sales assistant and did all those things that I did as an intern, and then got the job as a news production assistant on the weekends. Like I would fill in for people whenever they needed people. And that could be anywhere from like 4 a.m. to noon to 12.
So you're working every day.
Yeah, noon to 8 or 8 to 4 a.m. Like depending on whatever shift needed.
Yeah.
And I didn't care because that was like,
you felt alive.
I'm alive, and I'm doing this, and it's real, and it's real news, and it's happening, and there was, real things happening in the moment. And then the pièce de résistance was one day there was 3 guys who were awesome guys that did a sports show. It was called the WMAQ Sports Huddle, and they needed a girl to do the weather in between like their stuff, right? So I'm like, all right, and I'm like, white as a ghost, like just, I'm like going behind a microphone.
Yeah, was this radio or TV now?
This is radio. And I'm, and I know I'm going out there to everybody in the Chicagoland area. And I'm like, I'm just like, couldn't put the numbers on, but I was like, white as a ghost going, oh my God, I just got to get through this like 20 seconds or whatever. And I know I raced through the weather report, but what really got me was one of the guys, was like, and now for some weather, here's our weather girl. And he, instead of saying my name, Laurie Lieser, he says, Stormy Weathers. And I'm like, there's like, anything on radio, if there's like a second or 2 seconds of dead air, it's like, it's an eternity, hour. Right? And I'm like, and they're like, go. Like they're pointing to me through the window, like, go. And I was like, thanks, Steve.
This is Stormy.
This is Stormy Weathers, and here's your weather report for the, and I just blew through it. But I was like, so I became Stormy Weathers.
That stuck?
For a little bit. Not too long, for a little bit. And then I did that, I worked in the newsroom, and that was where I loved it. And so then I hit like 25, and I was like, I'm moving to LA. Like, if I don't do this now, I'm never going to do it. I'm going to get married and, have kids and regret, all the things that I wanted to do. And those were the 80s, in the 80s, 90s. It was like actually early 90s, mid 90s. So I decided, I turned 25, I was like, I'm moving to LA. And I grew up with this guy who was a couple years younger in high school, and he decided to do demo reels for actors. Oh. Yeah, which was, that really wasn't being done because, it's the catch-22, like you need film on yourself, but you can't get the job unless you have film, and it's like this back and forth. So he was doing this.
It was a lot harder to make demo reels back in the day.
Yes. So he was doing that in Chicago, and we had just had a conversation. We were friendly, and he's like, I go, I'm looking to move to LA, and he's like, well, how would you like to run the LA operation of this? I'm like, yeah. And then I also had hooked up, because my parents were like, you're not going to LA without a job. Yeah. So I had hooked up through WMAQ, the sister station, which is here, KFWB, to work as a news production associate, whatever, and do the job of, helping break stories and get information or whatever. So I moved to LA at 25, really not knowing anybody except him, but he was in Chicago and he'd go back and forth, trying to do the demo reel stuff. And it was really hard. Like he meant well and he tried hard. It just, I don't think all the ducks were in a row, going out of the gate.
Like were you doing this out of your apartment or was there an office?
Yeah, no, we kind of, at one point had joined at forces with a casting director for kids to try to, work with that and work with these kids who might have needed, demo reels and stuff. And we went to different kid, in those days, conventions kind of stuff for kids and entertainment. And we were trying to build business that way and try to do stuff. And we did a few of them, but it just never really got off the ground. It just was always a struggle. And so I stopped doing that and I was doing the radio stuff. And then I was doing radio, which I kind of knew at this point. But it was, honestly, it was very different in LA. I mean, obviously, LA is...
It's a big dog market.
It's a big, yeah. I mean, but it was like all celebrity and artificial. And I came from Chicago, which was like really hard news, to be honest. And not to be a snob about it, but that was like,
all the bad stereotypes about LA.
Yeah, I mean, it was like, I was in Chicago, like it was Edward R. Murrow. It was like, I mean, it was like these reporters were working hard to make sure everything was, was like real stories, real deep stories.
They were winning Pulitzers.
Yeah, exactly. And so coming here, it was like Lindsay Lohan stuff, and I'm like, oh, come on.
It's all gossip.
It was all gossipy stuff, and not to say like they did great stuff. And I remember, just to give you a sense of like the stuff that we covered, I was working the morning that Oklahoma City bombing broke.
Oh God.
And what was I remember this so vividly is that I saw it come over the wire and through AP, and I'm reading the information, and it didn't like register to me how large it was. Like it didn't register as I'm reading. It was like on the steps of the of the building and and then only when I got to see footage, I was like, oh my God, like what monsters, obviously.
That was a big deal.
It was horrible. And so I covered that, and that was one morning. I was like, oh my God! And you work shift, like I work 4 a.m. to noon shift for the most part, and if noon came and there was stuff breaking, like I would never leave. I never left. I mean, none of us ever really did. You just didn't, because it's news, right? That's just like
keeps going.
And I was working the morning Yitzhak Rabin was assassinated, and I remember that, and that was just horrible. And then I was working during the O.J. Simpson trial.
Oh my God!
And that was like, I got to file some stories on like all of this stuff. Like I would file stories depending on what was going on. But I mean, I don't even remember some of the stories I was filing. But I was like, filing stories. I mean, it was my voice. I was doing it. I was like, this is great. But I was such a perfectionist that I was like, if I would say something, and in those days, I don't even know what they're doing now, because this is in the mid '90s. So this is like over 20 years ago, right? I don't know. I doubt they're using the 8-tracks like it used to. The 8-track.
Oh, it must all be digital.
It's all digital. But I mean, in those days we had 8-track, and I'd be like, recording myself in a little booth over here, and I'd be like, oh, it's horrible. I got to do it over. And they're like,
and then running out with the tape.
It was like,
here it is.
Like Joan Cusack in broadcast news, running, get us on air.
Okay, so you're in radio.
I'm in radio. Happening. All that stuff's happening, and I'm doing KFWB, and then. But and I was okay with radio. But it wasn't like what I set out to do per se. Like radio, I fell into, honestly, and I was grateful for it, because I was only working there part time, and I was just doing the demo reel stuff. But then that went away, and then I was really looking for a full-time job. Mm-hmm. And lo and behold, there was actually one. So through the demo reel guy, we came to LA in April of '94 to do a scout to see like what we can do, because I moved here in August of '94. And through the course of that, we were going to a meeting at El Coyote on Beverly, right on Beverly Boulevard. And I didn't know. Like I was like, I was just so happy to be in LA. I'm just like looking around, whatever. And apparently he caught the eye of a young lady. Yeah. And he saw what car she was in or something, and he went to put a note on her car. So while we're in our meeting at El Coyote, this young lady comes in, and they start chit-chatting, whatever. Well, lo and behold, they start dating, and she becomes a friend of mine. And she's like, lives in LA. And I'm like moving out in August. She, to this day, is one of my best friends. Like they didn't last, very long.
You're kidding.
She's like a sister to me. She's like my family. Like we lived together for many years. We've been through a lot of stuff together. She's now married and happy and has a lovely, wonderful husband in Sydney, Australia. But just, she's still one of my best friends. Her cousin, who's a friend of mine as well, who's lovely, was working at the time at MGM. And she knew of, she'd been at a party. She was a chef, my friend, and she's an amazing chef. And she worked for amazing people, like big people in Hollywood. I'm not going to name names, but she was a chef for big people in this town, and she was phenomenal. But through the course of her meeting people, and she met someone at a party, there was a manager who was looking for an assistant. And this would be my first job. This would be 1995, I think. And so I met with her. I got the job.
Like a talent manager?
A talent manager, sorry, yeah. And so I became this talent manager's assistant. And I did the job for I think a little over 2 years. And I became a manager towards the end. But I was so green. I was so green I would do anything. And she was good to me in the beginning, and then she just kind of turned on me. And I'm not sure why to this day. And I've never talked to her since I left there. And she was really kind of horrible to me. And at a certain point, brought her son in towards the end. Before I was, going, I just, she's like, yeah, I'm going to grow the business and have him. And he had not done any of this. I mean, he had known what she did all these years and knew the clients.
Right.
But
so you were out because the son was coming in?
Well, no, I was still in, but he was getting all the things that I'd worked towards in this company. He was getting all the benefits, and I was the ones, staying in the office and making sure everything was taken care of, and not getting the opportunities to go to a taping of this show or to go to that meeting. And I was just like, you know what? I worked my butt off for you. I worked weekends. I mean, the thing is, during the course of working for her, for a year and a half of working with her, I still worked at the radio station on the weekends. So for 18 months,
Dang.
I worked 5 days a week for her, working, whatever, 10, 12 hours a day, whatever it may be. Maybe sometimes like 9, whatever it was. And then I'd work at 4 a.m. on Saturday till noon, come home, sleep all day, and probably wake up at 9 o'clock, have something to eat, and then be up again by like 2:30 to go back to the radio station at 4 a.m. And then I'd be done around noon, at 12 or anytime after noon. And then I would go run my errands, and then I'd go to work on Monday morning for her. And I did it for 18 months straight. So the whole year and a half, I really had no life, and I don't really have any memory, to be honest, of just... but it was really important for me to, not that I thought it would happen, but coming from the Midwest, I had great...
work ethic.
Great work ethic, and I was grounded. But I wanted to make sure I stayed that way, because here I am, like, getting off the proverbial bus, and I'm in Hollywood, and I'm a little, I don't say a little schtunk from the Midwest, like, and I'm going to make it in Hollywood, and I'm going to do this. And so I wanted to make sure that I just didn't lose sense of reality. And the news, it couldn't get more real than going into, like, God forbid, whatever it may be, like, people dying and just stuff that happened to real people. So working in the entertainment industry Monday through Friday with her, I was like, I'm dealing with Hollywood stuff, and people's writers, and they want this and they need that, and just Evian water, and
it's all very dramatic,
right? But it was, it was like stuff that to me was like, really, like, is this what this business is about?
Well, in the '90s was when everyone was washing their hair in Evian, wasn't it?
Yes. And yes, I mean, everything was happening that shouldn't have been happening in the '90s, right? I mean, not that it shouldn't have been happening, but
ridiculous.
It was excess. There was a lot of excess in the '90s, and I wasn't really reaping the benefits of that.
Right. You were delivering the Evian.
I was delivering. I was just making sure the writer that they had their Evian, if they had their pickups, if they had the right limo, or they had the right whatever, and that's what I did, and it was fine. We had some really great clients. Like, I mean, some of them were just amazing, and I was grateful for those relationships. But she was not great to me, and so I left after almost 2.5 years. And I became a manager, I think. I mean, I'm pretty sure, like, I was doing the job, and she would introduce me as, like, a manager here or there. Because she was so, like, hot and cold from day to day, I never knew, like, how I was going to be treated. And that takes its toll, and I'm a pretty strong girl. I got a pretty thick skin. And I think you have to, in this industry, you have to have a pretty thick skin, right?
But that just keeps you off balance.
Yeah. And more so in those days. I think we've reached a different place today where you don't necessarily have to have a thick skin because you're not really treated the way you would have been treated back then. Like, things
depends on where you are, I think.
That's true. But so I left her. I took basically a year off because I was like, I just need to, like, go see my family because I never could get away. I could never do anything, and took some time off and spent some time with my family, and then came back. And once again, my bestie Lydia hooked me up with someone. Her cousin was working at MGM, and there was this writer's wife who worked there, and this writer needed an assistant. And I was like, yeah, I would love to. He writes drama, and this is kind of my way into the drama world. He writes drama, and he's an assistant, and he's doing the show at Warner Brothers for NBC. And I'm like, great. Met with him, got the job. His name was Matthew Carnahan. I don't know if you know Matthew, but Matthew did Dirt, and he's the creator of House of Lies. And he's just a great guy. So I started working with Matthew and became his assistant. He was doing a show called Trinity on NBC with John Spencer and Joe Kleberg and Tate Donovan and I was coming in on the tail end of that, but I got to, like, oh my God, I'm on the Warner Brothers lot. Yeah. Like, this is my moment where, like, Queenie, I'm on the Warner Brothers lot. Like, this is where you were.
That's a trip.
It was a total trip, and I was just, like, pinching myself, and, like, just to, like, come through the gates, and, like, have a parking spot, and the water tower, just to walk on that lot.
Like, it is as cool as you think it's going to be.
It really is, and if people say it isn't, then pardon my French, but they're assholes, because it is.
Don't be so jaded.
It really is, and it's even to this day, like, I mean, our offices are on the Raleigh lot, and we're right across from the Paramount lot. And we did a show on the Paramount lot, and
Paramount's that way too, just magical.
Yes, and no offense to any other studios in town, but Paramount is my favorite. It is my favorite lot. It's just, there's something magical about being on that lot. And I was just there yesterday. We do our post production on that lot, and so I just I just love it. I just get, like, a great feeling. I don't, like, where can I go? Where can I walk around? I mean, I know the lot pretty well because we were there for 2 years, but
where's the New York street?
I'm like, where should I go? Like, walking. I mean, I need a golf cart because it's just kind of fun to have a golf cart. But anyway, so I'm at Warner Brothers. I'm working with Matthew, and then he had an overall deal, and then we went to his show got canceled, and we lost our offices at the Warner Brothers lot, and we found this amazing space. Took this space and we made it an office, and that was where I'd go to work every day. And literally, like, I don't know if you know Venice or not, but, like, Speedway was like right outside our door, like literally in the ocean. So I mean, they had a beautiful deck, and we could see over, and we'd have parties, and it was just a very communal place to work because upstairs was all these different writers or producers or whatever it may be. So it was really fun to have that kind of community. And we worked together for a couple of years, and we produced a documentary together that was about Rudy Giuliani and how he changed New York, which we didn't really appreciate. And he kind of took away the grit. Yes, thank you.
It's all together now.
The grit of New York that you kind of appreciate.
Right. You made 42nd Street Disneyland.
Yes, exactly. We called it the Disneyification of it, and so it was called Rudyland. And we, it was great. It was great to work with him and do it. And we got to go. We were in the International Festival of Documentary, I think IFDA or something like that. But we got accepted into it was in Amsterdam, and we got accepted into the festival.
Fun.
So we took the trip. It was 2000. Took the trip. Had the best, it was awesome and amazing, and it was great, and that was wonderful. So then we came back, and John McNamara, who I've worked with now for going into our 18th year, was doing a show called The Fugitive. He was doing the remake of The Fugitive. And Matthew's deal was expiring his overall was expiring, and they weren't going to renew it. And so he had interviewed for a writing position on The Fugitive, but he couldn't take me with him because he had no position for having an assistant. But John did. John had bumped up his assistant, and so he had an assistant. So I interviewed with John, and I got the job, obviously, after 18 years. And I started working with him. Now, to say that John and Matthew are different is, I think, an understatement. And neither one, there's no right way, right? Yeah. But Matthew was always very, soft-spoken and, just, I don't want to say chill, because John can be chill now. I guess in those days, John wasn't so chill. John, is like a force of nature, and he is just, he's amazing. They're both brilliant, but John's just like this brilliant, but he's a force of nature. Like, he's just someone you don't want to be the wrong side of. Yeah. And there would be times that we, worked together, and he's very loyal. We're both very loyal. But if you wronged him, that was it.
You're dead to him.
You're dead to him. And literally, those are the words he would use.
What is he, Scorpio?
Dead to me. No, he's an Aries. We're both Aries.
Weird.
I know. But I'm the same way. It's interesting because we're both Aries, so we also have that, we've worked so closely together for many years.
But you get each other.
We get each other, but we also want to kill each other at times because you got the male ram and the female ram, and so, their heads are butting a lot, and we both want to be heard, and, it's a dance. But, so John, I became his assistant, and it was, for the first few months, it was an adjustment for me because here is this guy who, he's in his late 30s. He's on top of his game. He's got ego. He's got ladies. He's got it all going, And I'm coming from Matthew, who was married at the time and had a kid. And I'd worked at Group W Westinghouse, corporate world. And so I go to John, and he's just like, I would just do I worked with the manager for so long. I knew how to, run a desk. I knew how to roll calls. I knew how to keep a calendar. I knew how to schedule. And I was no shrinking violet. But I was raised in the Midwest, and I was raised in corporate America. I was trained, I should say, and I was trained in news where, information, I'm an information junkie. Information is key to me. That was how I was trained in news. You need information to tell a story.
Serious people doing serious jobs.
Exactly. So that is transferred into my world, my work in drama. I'm constantly wanting information. I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's useful or not useful. I'll decide. Just give me information. And that
you got to know what's going on.
I got to know what's going on. It's part of my job, which, is I always think, say my job, I feel like I'm always the bridge between production and the writer's room because I work with the writers. I'm in the writer's office, but I'm not a writer and I'm not an assistant. I'm a producer in the office. So there's only one of me in our office. There's either writers, producers, or assistants, and I'm just a producer that's not a writer and not an assistant.
But you're making all that creative happen from a logistical standpoint.
Yes, and that's why it's I love my job, and I love that it's not definitive, and it varies every day, and it just I love that I can be the bridge, and I hear things that happen in the writer's room that I can let production office know, hey, just FYI, and I always do let them know.
We're going to need snow
right,
tomorrow.
Exactly, yes, and I'll always run it by John or Sarah or any shows that we do. I'm transparent, so I'm listen, I'm gonna let them know that. And yes, great, let them do that. And there's I'll be on phone calls, and it'll be something's happening, might be related to post, and post needs to know, and post-production department, and I'll call them up, and honestly, the post-producer on The Magicians and I have been dear friends for 18 years, 17, 18 years, so And I'm like, hey, just heads up, this is going to be coming. And she's like, great, thank you, because it only helps with efficiency, right?
I mean, you need some runway sometimes.
Totally, and that's all I ever want to do is to help
give people a chance.
Yes, and help the efficiency, because at the end of the day, too, like I'm always looking at the bottom line, which is $1, and that's what our studio's, always wanting. And granted, we want to put every dollar into the show. I mean, that to me is, benefits everybody, because
and last minute is way more expensive.
Yes, and the better the show can be, the better the people, the fans are going to appreciate it, and the more chance we have of being on the air longer, right? That's kind of how I look at it, my philosophy. So anyway, I'm working with John in the first 3 months. He's kind of, abrasive with me.
Is he hazing you?
I don't know. Well, yeah, I guess, yes, that's what actually would happen. So, and I'm like, and I'm taking it. And I'm taking it. And, he's snapping at me and he's saying stuff. And I'm like, what is with this guy? Like, I'm busting my ass trying to help you be efficient and do your job.
Help me help you.
Right. I mean, that was way before, Jerry Maguire. I could have used it for sure. But finally, it was like 3 months of this. And finally, I finally took enough. And finally, one day, I just snapped back at him. Because that's, I have that in me. But I was, again, raised in the Midwest, worked at Group W Westinghouse, was my training ground. It's very corporate. No one ever talked to me.
You got pushed to a point.
I got pushed to a point. And you pushed me. You pushed my buttons to a point. Like, I can be very gracious and very nice. I think as I get a little older, I probably lose some of that, because I'm kind of like, I've seen too much and I know too much.
You get a little perspective.
I get a little perspective. Not that I know it all.
On the urgency.
Yeah, not that I know it all, because I never pretend to know it all. I certainly have a lot to learn in life till I leave it. But I was like, I had it. I was like, you know what? I snapped back at him, and I don't remember what we were talking about, but I had enough. And to see his face, be like, all right, this girl's, all right. And I didn't know, like, he was testing me. He was kind of hazing me, and I don't think he knew it per se. And
Did you take it?
We've never really talked about it, but ever since that moment, things changed.
Yeah, he had a little respect for you.
Yeah, and he could see that, okay, she's got gumption or whatever. I don't know what the word is.
She's got the chutzpah.
I got chutzpah, and I got cojones, and I got, like, you're not going to push me around. Like, I let you do it for 3 months, but finally, like, we're done.
We're done, yeah.
We're done, because I'm not going to take this. Like, I'm not your punching bag, and I'm not your doormat, and I'm not, getting the finger up there. And furthermore, you can't tell me, So from that point on, it changed. And so we worked, again, now we've worked together.
18 years.
We're in our 18th year, and I, worked as assistant and moved my way up the ladder. And, we would have hiatuses. Like, he wasn't always doing stuff. Like, and I kind of went back to Matthew for a minute. So we did The Fugitive, which was an amazing experience, and we shot outside Seattle, Mukilteo, Washington, which was a great place. And Tim Daly, who's still a dear friend and a love, and I just love that man. We did 2 shows with him. We did that show. My dad passed away towards the end of the show, and I left. Went back home and was home for probably a couple months. Came back and the show had been canceled. The Fugitive had been canceled on CBS. It was the same year as a little show called CSI. We were back to back. Yeah. And we all know what happened there. So we got canceled, and I came back, and John had a development deal at Warner Bros. And he'd been there for years. Like, I think all in all, when all was said and done, he was there for like 12 years. And I came in, I was there with him for 5 off and on. But when I came back in 2001, and we were in development, and we had these great offices at Warner Brothers, but my office was all concrete. It was just, I had no windows.
Little prison cell.
Little prison cell. It was fashionable because John, God bless him, he's got amazing detail. Like, he likes the best of things, which I can only appreciate, because so do I. And so he can afford them, I can't. So it's great to be in his company, because you're always around great things and just, live a better life, which who doesn't want that? And even to have a taste of it now and then. So he's so generous. So I had a nice office, but I just, it was really personal and really deep, because I just watched my dad die, and I was holding his hand when he died. So I came back, and I was like, I was just crying every day. I'm like, I can't be here. And he would be at home. John would be at home, like, writing. And so it was just me alone.
Yeah.
Didn't really know a lot of people on the
You're
floor
like, this
yet.
is my life.
I'm like, I can't do this. I can't get through a day without, like, bawling. I just, because I had the vision and that's the sounds of my, my father's death and all these things that were just so fresh in my mind.
Well, you had grief.
I had grief and all those things, and I just was like, I can't. I mean, I love you, but I can't do this right now. Like, I can't.
Yeah, I can't sit here and be alone with my thoughts.
No, I can't. I just can't. So Matthew Carnahan got a co-EP job on a show called Thieves with John Stamos and Melissa George at the time at Warner Brothers. We were at the ranch, and Matthew was like, hey, I can have an assistant. I can have an assistant. I was like, great. So I went and worked with him. I said, John, I'm sorry, I love you, but I can't do this right now. Like, I can't be in silence. Like, I need to be in the thick of busy production.
Need some action.
Where it's just, I'm like, and we were shooting in LA. We were shooting at the Warner Brothers Ranch, so I was going to be in the thick of it. And I could just escape all of my horrible thoughts and memories that I just wanted to, healthy or not healthy. I wanted it to push away for the moment until I was at a place where I could deal with it. So go to work with Matthew the summer of 2001. And we're on, doing these, which is great. It was a great time. 9/11 hit, and that was bad. And the day after 9/11, I was walking out of my place because I was in a rush to get to work, and I turned my ankle and tore ligaments in my ankle, and that was a bummer. And around the same time, Matthew was not having the best time on the show, and really was at odds with a lot of different elements at the show. So he left. They brought in someone else, and they let me stay and become the writer's assistant. So I became, which is great in a sense because now I'm on crutches and I could sit down in a room
not running around
and just, take notes. So I did that for the season. And what was great about that, there's two things that was great. There's many things, but Thieves was lovely people and didn't last, which is a shame, but it was a fun place because the fun thing about that is that Earl Copelson, who I love dearly to this day, he was a producer on The Fugitive because he did the movie. So I got to know him a little bit through The Fugitive. Well, then he was a producer on Thieves as well. So I get to see him from time to time, and he's like, he'll refer to me as like Bubala, and we have that relationship, and he's just a good man. And the fun stuff was that they brought John McNamara in to consult. So I got to then, Johnny came into the Thieves writer's room, and here I am taking notes. It was just kind of like a weird thing.
All your worlds collide.
But it was, and it was great because then I'm like, made me feel like there was people that I knew and loved and I don't want to say felt protected, but I do. I mean, with John,
but familiar,
I do feel that way. We were only been together a year at that point, but we were through the trenches, and considering how we started, it was like a little rocky. It went from rocky to like the other way, just because like I was like, all right, this girl's got some chutzpah. And so then Thieves went away, and then he was developing, and he got a show called Eyes, which is another Tim Daly show. And we did that with ABC. And so he did the pilot without me. And I always went off and did other things. Like, I don't remember what I did during that time, but I know we did Eyes. He brought me in for the series. We did it. It was Tim Daly, who was great, Natalie Z, who was fantastic, and Eric Mabius, and AJ Langer, and Garcelle Beauvais, who's fantastic. We had an amazing cast. We had a great time. And ABC didn't really love us and really didn't help us. So we got buried. And after that show, John went off, and I don't think he had a development deal at that point. I think this deal with Warner Brothers was off. So we went our kind of separate ways, but then through someone I met through John, was working at E! Entertainment. And they were always looking for producers to, do their shows. And so I got a job doing countdown shows at E! Entertainment. And that was a great learning experience for things that I was like, I met the most amazing people that I'm still friends with, and I'm grateful for that. Like that was the funnest place to like work. Everyone was like, we're all the same age and just like going out after, or like, there's just, they were great to us. They had like these concerts in the square. It was just, like really fun, really great fun stuff. And
like just fun pop culture.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it was just, it was all that stuff, and we had a great time. But I was doing these countdown shows, and it was like my first show was the 50 best, I want to say romantic movies, but no, 50 best, it'll come back to me, but so I did a countdown show, and they gave me number 25 to 1. And I'm like, I'm the new one here. All these other producers, have been doing this. This is like their 3rd, 4th, 5th, 20th show. Yeah. And I'm like, this is my first show.
So are you pulling clips? What are you doing?
Yes, so they have, I have like, two, I have myself, then I have an associate producer, and then we have like an assistant, and they're all like, we're all working together to pull clips, getting clearances. And then we had to decide on a list of movies, and we had 50 movies, so we went through that whole process. I had a partner who was doing 26 through 50, who I love to this day, and I haven't seen her in so long, but she's a great girl. And so we worked together. She was so helpful and so lovely to me, because I was like, I've not done this before. I've been in scripted, in
How do you even
narrative.
determine it? Are you guys like making it up?
Well, what they do. You've seen this 1,000 times. Is that like we have these questions, like we choose the clip. The clip is usually for like 1 to 2 minutes, whatever it's going to be, 1 to 3 minutes, depending on what you got. Like I remember the number 1 was beaches. So it's like, was it 50 best romantic? No, it's 50 best best friends movies or something like that. So Beaches was number one. So we took, the heart-wrenching scene from there. And, then we'd have like Chelsea Handler in the day was like a big person, like comic we'd go to, and we'd sit down, we'd do the interviews, and we'd ask the questions, like, what does this scene mean to you? Or what do you think Cece was, feeling or thinking, whatever the question would be, right? And then they would give their funny or whatever answer. And we did that with whoever that they had, depending on, who was in their queue.
That movie, seriously. You just think about it for 5 minutes and start crying.
I know. I mean, to this day, and I think they did a remake for it.
They did. I saw that too.
Yeah,
that was heartbreaking.
I missed that. But, so we would do that. We would sit down these different, comics or different actors, depending on like who, the casting department would just bring in different people, depending on what they needed. So we would go through, we'd have our initial meetings, and then we would go through and pick the clips and see what we could get. That was always the fun of going to the different studios and trying to get, what they wanted, what we could afford. Going down our list, okay, we have to then swap that one out for this one. So then we'd get all of our clips, and then we go into editing. And this is what drove me absolutely nuts. And to this day, I talk about it because I just still don't understand it, and I think they're still doing it, which just makes no sense to me. You would go in and you have, the schedule for an editor. So you'd work with an editor for like 2-3 hour, spans. You'd come in your next shift the next day, and it'd be a different editor.
Do you have to start over?
You have to start over. I mean, and this would happen time and time again. And to the life of me, I was like, I don't understand.
We established yesterday what this is going to look like.
I've got to spend the first 30 minutes explaining to the new editor what we did, what's in the bins, what we can use, what we can't. I mean,
how weird.
Like trying to, because they'll go through the bins and try to figure it out themselves, but there's always like holes and they don't know. And so we go on and on and on. This would happen every day. Every day. And I would complain, and I would be like, you guys, like, and so I was brought in to my boss's office. And because I would complain about it, I'm like, you guys, like, I don't understand this. Like, I mean,
why can't you just hire an editor for a week?
Right, for like whatever it's going to be. But and I consider, like, I was trained by the best. John McNamara, like, it was like a boot camp, man. Like, I learned from the best about like how are things done. I took everything, and I was a sponge, in those days. I mean,
so they get on board, or did they get you in trouble?
I got in trouble. Well, I would say I got in trouble. I mean, I was brought in.
Rocking the boat?
I was brought in, and my boss said, "You need to bring it down. We work here." Like it was like the middle. He's like, maybe you've worked up here, but we work here, and you need to bring it down. And I was like,
bring it down a notch, lady.
And I was like, in my head, I'm like, really? Like,
shouldn't we try to work
don't
at a higher level?
to be the best it could be? Like, that's how I was trained. Like,
how weird.
I don't know how to do anything else. And I don't want to do mediocre or be below the best I can do. Like, that's just who I am.
How weird.
But I don't say I did. I just stopped. I just accepted. At a certain point,
all right,
I just accepted it. Because I knew I was not going to change their system, which had been going on.
Not going to change the whole culture.
No, and I was just trying to impart, like, this could be easier for everybody.
Yeah.
This could be better. But they didn't, and it wasn't. And so that was like, to me, it made me nuts. Still thinking about it makes me nuts because there's no continuity. There's no, you couldn't get into a rhythm with anybody because you're constantly changing. And then there was days, 50 best chick flicks. That was what it was called. The 50 best chick flicks was what it was called. And I think I was airing that night, and I came in that morning just to go over the show, and they lost the show. Like, they were digitizing it overnight, and they lost the show. And I was like, I don't even, like, I was like, I was going to take this back, it was the day before, because I remember I worked 28 hours straight from, say it was airing on Wednesday night, right? I got in Tuesday morning to find out it was lost. I worked from Tuesday morning all the way through. I slept in the bay from Tuesday all the way through Wednesday, like just before it had to air. We got it back, and I was like, I've never worked 28 straight hours. I mean, granted, I nodded off here or there, and the editors like changed. But thank God at that point they knew, like, you better bring in the editors that have worked on this, or I'm really going to lose it.
Oh my God.
Because that makes sense. So they did, God bless them. So that was, so I did that for like a year and a half, and then I went, John came calling again, God bless him, and we did a pilot called Them. He got a deal at CBS Paramount, so we were then, had an overall deal at Radford, and anyway, we were there, and we did a pilot called Them, and it was at Fox, and we were supposed to be picked up for mid-season, but then it didn't get picked up, but they wanted to change a few things and then take it to series. Well, during that time, the regime at Fox changed, and Kevin Riley had come in, and I think he was looking to do other things, and it went away. So funny enough, we were at CBS Radford, and we were developing other things after Them went away, and we have been talking with the guys from Hazy Mills, who are lovely, Sean Hayes and Todd Milner, and they were working on the Brothers Grimm stories, you know, and they were trying to get that up. And so we had been in conversation with them and talking about possibly doing it and just doing, you know, research. And you know, John was really kind of interested in doing it. And then the writer's strike hit.
Great.
Mm-hmm. And then that was like a and we were all out of jobs. I mean, CBS, you know,
slow your roll.
Yeah, and during that time, it was like, I think 2007, right? The network studios took an opportunity to clear the slate of overall deals, right? Like that kind of went away for a while. I mean, thankfully they've kind of come back, but during that time they kind of went away, and then we didn't, you know, really do much of anything. And then, and he was actually during that time he actually started working on Trumbo, which is a film that he wrote and produced, and I was a producer on that as well. And he started to develop it. He got the rights to the book and started to develop it. So I was helping him develop it, and we did a fun. He wanted to like do a trailer, do something like a lookbook with it. So we did a lookbook, and I remember like it was such a fun time. We got some actors. We went down to Union Station, and we shot because it was set in like the 40s, 50s, 60s. And so we got everyone dressed in period, and we went down to like, you know, Union Station and shot like some amazing stuff. Fun. And put a lookbook together, and so that was really fun. And just he developed it for years, and it went on. Like, I mean, I read so many different drafts and gave so many different notes, and finally, obviously, it came to fruition, you know, a few years ago, and we got it made. And Bryan Cranston, you know, was nominated for an Oscar, which was so great. And hell, I mean, it was an amazing cast. Like, that was amazing. It just like, you know, pinched me again. Like, you know, again, I'm gonna swear, like little shit from Munster, Indiana, and I'm like, you know, working on this, and
you're in it.
You know, I'm in it, and it's like, you know, I can't help but bow to John McNamara because I know I've been on this ride with him for a long time, and there's been some bumps in the road for sure, but you know, that with anything that happens. But so we were developing that, and then he got the call to run In Plain Sight, as that was being they needed a new showrunner. So we did that for a season 3, and we were going back and forth from Albuquerque, and that was a lot of fun. That was interesting, you know, just to be able to travel again. Like I had done The Fugitive with him in 2000, and then now it's like 10 years later, and we're doing a show in Albuquerque. So to be able to go there, and it was a female lead, which was great, and so that was, you know, an interesting, fun ride. And then John, you know, got sick in 2010 and took some time off, and so then, you know, throughout the process, I always try to recreate myself and like do different things and wear different hats, just so I can get a sense of what's out there, just so I know like, oh, this is what this person does. This is what it feels like to do this job. And actually, in between Eyes and In Plain Sight, I was doing publicity, and I became a publicist, filled in for someone who was on maternity leave at Disney International.
What?
Which I know, and I kind of been doing the publicity stuff internally for the shows, like working with Tim Daly on Eyes. And The Fugitive I actually did a little bit, but I was new to that process, so I wasn't really doing a lot. But when I did Eyes, I was doing a lot of that with all the actors and stuff, and I just kind of took point with the studio network publicist and like being the point person and being able to get, you know, when you have a personal relationship with the actors and you're with them all the time, you have more of a relationship with them.
Right.
And
you can get stuff done.
I get stuff done because like I can be like, hey, it's me. Like, will you just do this? Like,
come here, do this thing.
Yeah. And Tim was always so great. All the cast was so. I could be like, yeah. So I talked to the studio network publicist. I'm like, yeah, they're willing to do this. We did like E.T. would come and like all these different fun things, right? So I got into it and I loved it. It was kind of fun. I mean, it was like, again, like being in the middle of it, right? And it was, you know, media in a sense, which I started in news. It was kind of all coming full circle. So then I did publicity for Disney International, and I covered private practice, and I
love private practice.
Me too. And I covered Grey's Anatomy, and it was just like really cool shows. And so I got to go on a press tour to Scandinavia.
That doesn't suck.
It does not suck at all. And it was like, oh my God, pinch me now. and honestly, and I was covering for one of the other publicists who couldn't do it because she had to go somewhere else. So and this wasn't even a show that I was covering. And honestly, at that point, I'd never seen an episode of the show, which when I tell you what show it is, you're going to be like, what? Why? How?
How did you not?
Exactly. And it's a little show you might know called Lost. And I was going on a press tour with Terry O'Quinn, and I never had seen the show, and I was like, I need a fast cram session on Lost.
Yeah, because you can cram Lost.
Yeah, because
it's so easy.
I just was like, you know what, just give me what, I don't know. I mean, to me, I was really there just to help with the press and like help, you know, facilitate stuff with foreign press and whatever. So that was like one of the most amazing experiences, and I got to go, we started in Stockholm, and then we went to Oslo, And then I went to London, and then the publicist who covered the show took it from there, and they went to Ireland. I was like, damn it, I almost got to go to Ireland. I didn't make it. But
you couldn't complain because you had just been to Oslo.
No, I mean, all of it was like, oh, and I've never been back. And it was just an amazing, amazing trip. And I was just like, pinch me. So I've really always been really active in publicity marketing of different shows. It just kind of was something that I, enjoyed, and it just became my thing. So then we did In Plain Sight. John got sick. And then I was like, all right, what am I going to do now? I got to really figure out what I'm going to do for me, because I've been working with him so long. I know a lot of my identity is probably associated with him. I really probably need to do something for myself, or I got to a point in my life where I figured that out, because I was just more.
But who is Laurie?
But
what does Laurie want?
Who is Laurie? What can Laurie do? Because Laurie's not a writer. Laurie can produce, but I have to find other people to work with, and that's people have their person, and that's like John's my person, and Matthew was my person. But I was like, but I wanted to see is there something that I can do, that I have a talent outside of producing that I can do. And I got into voiceover.
What?
Yeah, because my whole life, people had always said, oh, your voice. Like, my phone voice is like,
I hear it.
Thank you. But I mean, my voice, like I would answer, obviously John McNamara's office, for a long, John McNamara's office. And,
You'd be like, hold on.
Yeah, I'd be like,
who is this?
And there honestly were, obviously we're coming to the Me Too, right? And Time's Up. There was definitely times during the course of those years where people were inappropriate. Men were inappropriate with me about my voice and asked me to say or do certain things. And I was like, thank you, I'm not comfortable with that. Let me get John for you, whatever it may be, So
I'm glad for John, but first, could you say this to me?
Yeah, exactly. It really was like, can you call me back after? I'm like, no. Ew. Anyway, I got into voiceover. And more like not, I wasn't really into, not that I wasn't into, I was, I think, too afraid at that time to be like, oh, I'm going to get an agent and I'm going to do a demo reel and I'm going to do all this stuff.
Yeah.
How'd
you get in?
I thank God, once again, I became a looper. And I did.
Did you get in a loop group?
Yes.
How'd you get in that?
Well, because I was a producer on a show.
So you're like, I'll jump in.
Right. But I know it's like, I never, ever, ever, ever used my position to do anything. But at this point, I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do the rest of my life. Like, I don't know what's next. Like, I need to pay bills and I need to get through life. And
that's a good job.
That was a great job. So I started looping in 2010 and did that for quite some time, here and there. And I still do it when I can. God bless John is like, yeah, if we've got time, do it. So I did that for a while, and then I did that through 2010 to 2014. Granted, I got pregnant in 2013, so I was looping pregnant, which is it was interesting. It's just a whole different thing. It was great, it was fine, but it was just weird.
Kind of a great pregnant job, though.
Yeah, it was amazing. And then I had my child at the end of 2013, and then my son was 3 months old, and John, literally, I remember this, like it was my birthday, and we reached out, and he's like, I want to come see you and talk to you about something. I said, sure. I was doing something like getting a Social Security card or something for my son, I think, at that time. I don't know. I was like somewhere in some governmental office that I ran late. I come back to my place, and John's sitting on my couch, like waiting. My mom was there, so they knew each other for years, and they were talking, but he's sitting there waiting. And I just moved into this new place, and I think like the air conditioning wasn't working. He's like sitting there like sweating, and he hates to be hot, and I don't blame him because I do too. I was like, oh
and
my
you're
God.
Sweating because you're carrying around a 3-month-old in the big car seat.
And it's April, and it's like hot out, and I'm like mortified because he's hot. I know he's probably like just edgy because he's like hot.
Like, oh no,
I'm like, oh God, what's happening? And so he's like, listen, I got the show. I would love for you to come on board. It's a limited series. And at that point, I was like, okay, great. Like, it's 13 episodes. And we did it. A show called Aquarius with David Duchovny. Lasted 2 seasons on NBC. And that was a great ride. And so we did that. But during the course of Aquarius, The Magicians is based on a trilogy of novels that John McNamara, Sarah Gamble, and Michael London had the rights of the books. And they wrote it on spec. John and Sarah wrote a script. And they sold it to Sci-Fi and UCP. So through the course of Aquarius, they wanted to make the pilot. So we did season 1 of Aquarius, literally threw a wrap party on a Saturday night, and we were all on a plane Sunday to start working on Monday in New Orleans. We shot the pilot of The Magicians in New Orleans.
It's a feast.
So it was like, thank you God. Like, and there had been a lot of famine, okay? This business obviously has really, has its ups and downs, and there's a lot of, and I've had a lot of famine, so don't get me wrong, like it's been a rough road. But I'm grateful that there's been famine, and I just, want to keep working, and now I have a child to support, and that's,
motivating.
I was always motivated. I always was working. I was always doing something. Like, I wasn't always good. I'm not good with being idle. I'm not good with being idle. Like, I'm just not. Like, I need to be doing something. Whatever it may be.
We can all tell just by talking to you.
I know. I'm like a mile a minute, right? So we did season 1 of Aquarius, did the pilot of Magicians in New Orleans. We were there for a month. Came back. Season 2 of Aquarius got picked up. Started shooting season 2 of Aquarius. And through the course of that, they picked up the pilot for Magicians for series. Yeah.
Are you producing both?
Yeah. We're in all of this. And Trumbo's happening. Trumbo has then been picked up and is being produced and being shot in New Orleans as well. So those were happening simultaneously. And then the writer's room for Magicians was going on. And then we were gearing up to shoot, I think. That's right. Yeah, I think it was 2016. So I know the timing's a little off. But yeah, it was a constant. It didn't stop. It didn't. And I was like, oh my God, this is so fantastic. And it's been a great ride. I'm grateful. I'm always just so grateful and thankful. Because my job, I don't think my job would really exist in I don't say in a normal world, but in an industry, it's like,
well, it's not in Indiana.
Well, it's not in Indiana now. But I'm a non-writing creative producer, and I don't get to be as creative as I want to be at times. But I'm in every casting session, and I get every outline or every script or whatever, and I'm not afraid to give my 2 cents, whether they ask for it or not. I don't care.
You're in it.
I'm in it, and I'll give it because I always consider myself the dumbest one in the room. I do, because I'm surrounded by such brilliant writers. And because their job is to constantly be reading and doing stuff. I don't have a lot of time to be doing all that because my job is, I don't have a specific niche in terms of I'm a writer and I write and that's what they focus on, right? Mm-hmm. My job is to focus on everything and all of it because I have got my fingers in everything just because I can help the process of everything because it's it's a process of every department feeds off the other. Mm-hmm. And if I have information, which is coming back to me being an information junkie, I have all this information and I want to be able to help and share whatever information I have that can help the process and make the show the best it can be. And that's always my goal, is to make the show the best it can be. Any project, anything that we do, I always say I'm not here to hurt, I only want to help. And I understand in human nature, sometimes you hurt things and make things worse than they need to be. But my goal is always to help and not to hurt. And that's...
So just so I can make the distinction in my own head, you're a creative producer with the writers, but you're not the line producer, but you're the conduit between the two.
Yes. And I
so
work
you really have big picture.
Yeah. And I work really closely with the line producer who's, great. And in the UPM. And everybody. And I also handle internally the publicity marketing mm-hmm. closely with the studio network and with the, helping with the actors and whatever. And just because I have the relationship with them, because the studio network, we're one of many shows that they have to service, right? So, I'm servicing our show. I want our show to do and get the stuff that they can get. And so I work with all the departments and I'm on all the email chains and all this stuff just because I might find out information from the costume department that may help the writers. Hey, they're not going to get this, this costume or whatever they're expecting from Bulgaria, which I'm making that up, but they're not going to get that in time and they don't have time to make it. So we need to change this character. We need to change this creature or whatever it may be.
They can't have that wig.
They can't, whatever it may be. So I'm tuned in because there's so much going on and they're in the room, they're where they're supposed to be, breaking story and figuring out what the show is and what it's going to be. And
you kind of might have the best job.
I really do. And I really do. Because
and I haven't talked to any of you before. Because I've talked to line producers, I've talked to UPM, I've talked to writers. Yeah. I'm fascinated by your job. It sounds really fun.
I know, and that's the kind of the thing that, and again, I credit John for letting me find my way. Because
you're in casting.
I'm in every casting session. I'm in, I try to watch every cut. I get all the cuts of the shows, and I'm in every meeting. I'm in every phone call. I'm dealing with the budget. I'm really someone, whether they know it or not. I'm in constant conversation with our line producer about the money and where mm-hmm. we're at, and where are things, and how I can help cut costs, and how I can, on our end, because I can see stuff.
Because you can influence creative from a cost perspective, for sure.
For sure. And I'll say, well, what about this? And I try to sometimes get in the room and just be in there with them. I don't really have a lot of time with that. That's the problem, is that because there's so many other things going on. I do have a great job, and a lot of the departments, just in terms of information that could help the process. And again, that's always my goal, is to help the process. I do have a great job, and I love it. And I've not really met many other people that kind of do what I do. And I think only because I made it what I wanted it to be, and that would with my strengths. Everyone has different strengths.
You found just the right niche.
I did. I really did. Niche. And so I did, and I'm again so very grateful, and I love my job, and it's different every day. Aside from the things that we do in a day in terms of the writers are in the writers' room, and I'm talking to production, or we've got a casting session, or we've got a props meeting, or we've got every episode there's every department has their thing that they've got to go down, and we pick certain props that no, they'd hold that sword, not that sword, or those glasses are better than those glasses,
And how much influence do you have in hiring directors for episodes? And is that a conversation right now about getting women in the room?
It's always been a conversation. That's what I love about John and Sarah. Like, it's not even, and this goes with casting, I think, too. Like, we're not in the business of like trying to make a statement. It's just, that's who we are, and we want to hire the best person for the job, and we want everybody to have the same opportunity, and that's. We don't understand why it's not been happening. Like, to us, like, we've always been giving those opportunities because, I've been working with John a long time. Like, we had female directors on The Fugitive 18 years ago.
Yeah.
We had, minority directors on those shows, and we always have. And Sarah as well, like, even when we cast, like, John doesn't go to casting sessions, but it's usually Sarah and I or whoever the writer is.
You're talking about Sarah Gamble.
Sarah Gamble, sorry, yes, Sarah Gamble, who's, if you could clone her, she is magnificent. She's just amazing. I really watched her these last couple of years, and she just this past year did 2 shows simultaneously, and I marvel. And we put it out to the casting directors. We're like, there's no color here. It's like the best actors. So like, go wide, go, and also like, in terms of body image, like, just whatever. We don't care what they look like. We don't care. We want the best actor. That's who wins the job every time, and that's what's been so great about working with them, is that's always been the attitude. If it's an attitude, I don't even know.
This is how we want everybody to be.
Yes, and I, it's just, please God, let it be changing. Please let this be the time, because, I'm raising a young man. I'm raising a gentleman. It's really important for me to raise a gentleman. It's just, I don't want him saying things like that have been said about women in our time. I just don't. It's not okay, you know. And I've been around it. We've all been around it. It just, and at a certain point, you're like, it's just men, or it's just caveman, or whatever. But at a certain point, it's like, you know what? I didn't ask for it.
It feels like we're at a point where we're like, all right, you're done.
Yeah,
Enough
it's done.
already.
It's just done.
It's over.
It's just happened too long.
Like, you're still talking like that? What's wrong with you?
Right. It's
we've moved on.
And I wonder, like, when all this is happening, like, what is Italy thinking right now? Like, what are the men in Italy going? You people, like, I'm going to grab your ass, and you're going to like it.
I'm going to chase you down the street. How did you, at some point in this story, you had a 3-month-old, and then you went to work, and then it sounded like you never stopped. Mm-hmm. How have you managed that as a single mom of a little boy? I have a great support system. I have great help, and I have a great nanny, and I have great, my mom, who's, been in town a lot, off and on, and been there. And I have great bosses, they totally get it. Like, John, grew up with a single mom. And, Sarah's, they just get it. And I'm like, and I really don't try to take advantage of it. I at times, like, listen, I need this hour, or I need to do this. They're like, yeah, just go, whatever, go. Listen, I'm a woman in my 40s. Like, I'm not like a child. I got to be there, and I'm late, or I'm like, It's like, the guilt, I left 5 minutes early, but I worked 18 hours.
Yes, that's still me, though. That's just how I was raised. That's how I was
You're going to get the job done, regardless.
Yes, I'm going to get the job. Whether I'm getting paid or not, I'm getting the job done. Like, got to see things through. That's just who I am. I can't just, drop the ball. I can't. It's not who I am. So, it's just, I've had great support. And I'm just, I'm present when I'm with him. I'm present when I'm with him. And I try to be with him as much as I can. I work some crazy long hours, but, I always say goodnight to him. We always have, like, cuddle time or snuggle time. And, he's just the best thing that ever happened to me. So I will never compromise that. He's my everything. You just make it work. It's hard. It's hard. There's a lot of guilt at times, like, wish I could take him to play dates and be at the play dates and do stuff, but, like, I can't do all that. It's just not.
You got to let that go. We can't live with constant guilt.
No, I know. But, it's listen, the thing is, like, I hope I'm showing him that, like, listen, you have a mom that works hard, and giving him all the tools to say, like, your word is your honor, and integrity is everything. And that's what I was, how I was raised and how I was taught. And that's still how I go through things. And I don't really feel like that's a lot, like that doesn't happen as much these days. And that is a bummer, but I am adamant about him being a good man and having the right values and having, saying, I'm really on him, like, I please and thank you, and having manners. And,
it's funny because I think a lot about, in fact, I went on a tirade about it recently. for all the amount of time we spend raising girls to know how to defend themselves and tell them to speak up and la 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 la, if we focused all of that on raising our boys to be good humans and nice men, that would solve the problem.
Yes, I totally agree with you. And that is really what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, good.
I mean, there's no playbook, right? Being a parent,
we're all making it up.
We're all making it up. I mean, but I read a lot and I look at stuff, and I'm not saying like I agree with everything I read or see, but I get tips and I get like little things like, oh, I should try that, because you're dealing with I have a now 4-year-old. Psychologically, I'm trying to figure out where he's at. Sometimes, like, we're having a conversation, like, it sounds like, all right, this is going good, like, and then I could say something like, oh, yeah, buddy, I didn't get a chance to wash that, or like, and then it's like, whole world has ended, and I am the worst mommy on the planet, and hi, why didn't you wash? I'm like, it was late, was tired.
Is it a big deal?
I mean, to me, I was like, I can wait till tomorrow. You've got another one? But no, you need 2. I didn't know.
The world.
Yeah, I mean, so it's stuff like that.
Oh, yeah, you're 4.
I'm like, yeah, you're 4.
Yeah,
all right, I get
got
it.
it.
I'm trying to get down to your level of like 4. That's
a
bad.
big deal.
It's bad. I was bad. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Now, what do you make of kind of this moment in the zeitgeist of women in Hollywood? What do you make of it?
I hope this is our time. I mean, the time's up, right? I mean,
feels like it.
It feels like it, and I tip my hat to Reese Witherspoon and Nicole Kidman and all those ladies that are taking this to the next step, because and Oprah, God bless Oprah.
How was that speech?
Oh my God, I said
this on every podcast this week. Can you
get
over it?
I mean, obviously she's been a huge influence on all of us for many years, and she's just an amazing person. I was listening to her podcast.
It's Super Soul Sunday, but in a podcast.
Yeah, and I just started listening to that, and I was like, oh God, Oprah, God bless. It doesn't end with giving us something. It didn't end with the show ending. Like, she's still giving us the tools that we need, because we're always learning.
And the Golden Globes, it was like, ooh, has she stepped into her power?
Yes. And I just, like, she was doing I was listening to one with Norman Lear, and she's like, she's 62. I'm like, you're 62? When did you become 62? You're like 42.
When did that happen?
No, I mean, you're 40, you're not 62. But yeah, I mean, she was amazing. I hope this is our time, because, I honestly feel like I was a product of the old ways. And I feel like if I had been, I'm a pretty strong woman, but I feel like I don't think I've spoken up enough for myself throughout the years. And I feel like had I had this, 10 or 15 years ago,
it's a different time.
It's a different time, and I can't think.
We just got to forgive ourselves.
I know.
For the shit we took.
I know, because I've always, I've always kind of been in a supporting role, and I'm okay with that in a sense. I'm not the creator of content, so I'm okay with taking the creative once it's done and trying to help that process. I hope it's all of our time. I hope it gets to a time where doesn't have to be about anyone's time. It's all of our time. There doesn't have to be a distinction, that we all can just get along. I mean, that's honestly, I always say that. It just sometimes when things go wrong in a set, and I know it's from some movie or something, but I'm like,
well, it's Rodney King.
Is it Rodney King?
Can't we all just get along?
It's Rodney King. Oh gosh, God, thank you, Rodney. Like, can't we all just get along? And I say that. I mean, I really
think
do.
we all want to get there. Can we get past the shit show that is right now, so that we can just get to a place where we're all equal and we're all doing the work and everyone gets along?
Yeah, and
that's the goal.
I'm a big believer in like role playing, in a sense of, not that we should do this, but I'm just saying maybe SNL should do this. Actually, SNL, I'm giving this to you. I mean, the role playing.
Listen up, Lauren. Listen up.
Listen up, Lauren. Yes, please. That there should be a skit about the women treating the men all these years, like, hey, nice ass, baby. Like,
Women in Film did a whole series, Flip the Script, where they took real situations and reversed the genders of the roles, and it's absurd.
The other times,
it's hilarious.
Yeah, but like, I would love to see I would love that. I would love
They're
more
like,
of
ooh,
that. Right.
Ooh, the director's a man this time?
Right. Wasn't like Disclosure, was that Demi Moore? Wasn't like she did a movie where she was
she was doing the sexual harassment.
Yeah, sexual harassment with, like, young man at the office. I mean, like, I just would love to let, it's not to get back at them. It's just to let them see what it's been like. Like, this is
when you reverse it, it's absurd.
Yeah, right. And so I just want people to understand, like, this is what it feels like to be on the receiving end of that.
Have you seen that sketch? A guy had been mugged, and the woman was interviewing him, like, "Well, what were you wearing? When you got mugged?" Well, you kind of asked for it, didn't you? Like, and it's just ridiculous, But it's so. What happens to women all the time.
It is, and so the objectification of it all is like, I just would like to reverse the roles and let men feel what it's like, or just whether it's a skit or an exercise or a play, whatever it may be.
Because you just want to
Because you learn from, like, you know, when you listen, like, you see something, you're like, oh, I get it. When you feel it, like, theater is so powerful, right?
Yeah.
Like, you feel when you're in the theater and you feel these performances. Like, I just think some playwright out there, please. And I know John McNamara's playwright and Alexander Cunningham's playwright. Any of you guys want to write this, but I just feel like there's something there that maybe would help reach the people that like, oh, what's the big deal? Like, you know, so what?
Yeah.
You pinched your butt. Like, you know, yeah, I mean, it just doesn't feel good, you know?
And it's cumulative.
Yes, it is.
Then,
yes, because you don't know.
30 years in,
right.
You've lost your voice completely.
Yes.
Because of every little microaggression that's happened.
And that's a good thing. Like, you say that, it's like, I do feel like I've lost my voice throughout the years. I still, like, I want it back. I'm working on getting it back. I think all of us are.
Yeah, me too.
But I hope this is the time for us to, you know, it's the awareness I think helps too. Like, everyone's been like, you know, hush hush for all these years.
And there's power in numbers.
Yes.
Because we can flip it and be like, enough of our shame about it, and be like, no, you knock it off.
And in the day, I mean, this obviously started caveman, right? I mean, it started so long ago, but I think, like, you know, the women in like the Barbara Stanwyck and that era, like, I'm sure they put up with it, but I know she didn't. I mean, she had some wars. I think I read a story about her saying, like, get your hand off of my leg, like God bless, you know, she did that.
But I think there were also more boundaries just socially with etiquette. Like, people weren't having sex on a first date.
No.
So there was a bit more.
Yes, but the casting couch came from that era.
Yeah, true.
You know, I mean, that went on for years and years and years and years. I mean, and then, you know, the contract players, like, I mean, these women signing on for years, like, signing their lives away. If, like, you know, you want a contract at MGM, yeah, for nothing. So, like, all that stuff, you know, started in the heyday of Hollywood, and it just kind of kept going, and it was okay because no one was talking. But now we're in a society, you know, whether it's because of social media, I would gather, like, there's just, you can't get away with stuff. I mean, everything is so viral. Like,
well, and I think we've had enough generations now of telling girls you can do anything and you're equal. And, you know, we were told that, and then we got in the workplace, we're like, okay, maybe not quite.
Yeah. I'm the secretary. Okay. I'm the
but
secretary.
enough generations of that, and they're like, what the hell? No.
Right. Well, that's the beauty too. And I hope that this is the turn. I hope this is the time that we are really, now we never have to look back.
Yeah.
I really hope this is the time.
All right. What is your piece of advice for the next girl coming out of Indiana?
Don't ever give up. Don't ever let anyone tell you can't do it. I mean, you know, and especially now, I think with the internet, which we didn't have. I mean, you know, actually when I started working with the manager, that was like the computer came. That was my first AOL account.
Yeah.
You know,
You're still using your AOL
I'm still using
account.
AOL. I can't. Yeah, I can't get rid of it because now it's just, you know,
That's your address.
I've had it for forever. I mean, I've had it since '94, I think, 95. So I would say just don't ever give up. Don't ever let anyone tell you can't do something, because you can do anything. And I said this recently. A friend of mine who runs this semester in LA for the Columbia College Chicago for actors, and I just spoke with him these students last week, and I said this to them, and I imparted this on them. It is, what would you do if you could not fail?
Yes, that's a good one.
Right? What would you do if you could not fail? And that's how you have to go through life.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you. This has been lovely. I've just like been blabbing and have like gone on and on and on. So thank you for letting me have this moment.
It's so good.
You've been listening to The Other 50%, a herstory of Hollywood. I'm Julie Harris Walker. I'd like to thank Laurie Lieser for sharing her story, and special thanks to Jay Rowe, Danny Rosner, and Allison McQuaid for the music. Please find us on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, Podbay, and subscribe and leave a review, and of course on our website, theother50%.com, all spelled out in letters. For added features, bios of our guests, and the merch, please go there right now and subscribe. We're also now on YouTube and iHeartRadio. You can also follow us on Facebook and on Twitter at Other50% and Instagram at Other50% Podcast. Thanks for listening. See you next time.